So this week's chapter was LGBTQ mobilization activism. Um, and it really had to do about how the LGBTQ community was able to bring awareness and show throughout the eras and time of how without these major like Stonewall activisms, we wouldn't be where we are today. It brought the left, the right to speak about it. Um, and I think that's actually pretty cool. Unfortunately, a lot of these situations had to come with violence, had to come with persecution of the LGBTQ community. I think something that really stood out was the neighborhoods, which I thought was a great thing, because if it wasn't for them being able to be around each other and put each other in their own shoes, because there's plenty of communities, and as long as you don't have the support of others, that you feel like maybe you're alone and you don't know, nobody else knows what you're going through. And so through these neighborhoods, these communities that they built, they were able to come together and understand each other and support each other in the means of saying, you know what, yeah, let's continue these movements, let's continue going with what we're doing. And all because they were able to see each other's struggles and understand each other in a way that they would have not been able to if it wasn't for these neighborhoods, as they called them. Also, I think it's really sad that in a time of a crisis, I mean, right now we have the coronavirus, and because of the expansion and because people are talking within a matter of a few weeks, there's been all this change and reaction from the presidents, from the states, from schools, and in the entire presidency of Reagan, he didn't speak about the epidemic that was going on with AIDS. And it wasn't until some actor passed away that it was brought up, and it was just kind of like, not a problem. We're not going to put money into this. We're not going to educate anybody. We're not going to educate ourselves, which had an effect. It killed many because there wasn't the education for it. There wasn't the urgency for it. If it because it wasn't people of norms, which is pretty sad. It really is. And at the beginning of the book, it talks about how they had to fight with the churches about wearing condoms, because of a whole birth control issue. But it condemned and put people at risk. It was their lives that was going on the line for that, which isn't okay. And it's pretty sad. And what I took away from this entire chapter is that they were literally fighting for their health. They're fighting for their education for themselves, education towards others, whether it be education about the AIDS, about health, about education about who they are, and they're not contagious, that they're not sick, they're not ill, they're not weird, that it's not going to rub off on somebody else, and and if it wasn't for all of these movements, all of these, this like the Stonewall, they would have not been where they are today. And Um, quite honestly, it's kind of like thanking the right wing for saying, we're going to think of head and not give the marriage. But in 20 years, after, back and forth and individual states and counties not recognizing, then taking 20 steps back, they were finally able to have legalized marriage throughout the entire country, and not have to worry about, if I cross state lines and something happens, am I not going to be considered, the next of kin to my spouse? And really have to consider that during travel or just living their daily lives. If today we're married and tomorrow we're not, because, laws change. So I think that as a nation, we have grown and we have changed, but there's still a lot to go, and there's a lot of education to still go over. And LGBTQ, each initial stands for something, and I think each individual still has much to grow as a separate, as a whole. And as I read in another book, it takes 7 generations to complete change, and I don't think we're quite there. So I think in our lifetime we'll be able to see even more change and even greater rights and equalism for this community, and I really do hope so.